I don't want to delay Eric. He's got lots of things to share, and Eric's always an enjoyable presentation. I know it makes everybody a little bit afraid. It's frightening sometimes, the stuff he has to say. And today will be no different than in the past. Eric Watchtail, of course, is the National Compliance Officer with IDC Win, and he's here to talk about the what, the why, how of reason why letters. Recently, there was a survey done, an audit done. And one of the big things, I think, Eric, was that the biggest place we could make an improvement was in that reason why letter or in discovery agreements, making sure that the clients know what they've purchased, know why they've purchased this, and how we came up with the idea of how much they should have in any of the areas in terms of retirement planning, life insurance, or living benefits. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Eric. Take it away. Have a great half an hour, and good luck.
That's great, Don. Thanks very much, and welcome everyone. Happy to be here on day two, kicking it off. And as Don said, yeah, the timing of this is great because we have some good data to share with you in terms of what's happening overall in the world of compliance. And then I want to narrow in on reason why letters and show you how there's a cross section there where good compliance equals good business revenue, and how it can actually improve your sales as well as help you be compliant and pass audits. So I'll kick it right off here. And just as a refresher, so I know you hear me say this a lot, but compliance is, rather repetitive. And the good news is there's only two things that you have to be compliant, that have to be compliant in your business. And that's your practice has to be compliant. And there's certainly a lot of material and bulletins we've sent out in the past about you needing your AML compliance manual to be in order in your practice. And I just sent out a compliance bulletin last week on that topic with some updates in that area. Then we live in a world of heightened sensitivity about privacy. Your privacy compliance manual and the tools that you use within that manual, the tools you use in your practice to protect your clients' information, to communicate clearly with them, to try and prevent breaches and how to report and contain breaches if they occur. That's certainly important as well. And then having your overall market conduct compliance manual, proof of your errors and omissions insurance, CE credits, holding out, all that kind of thing. So that's component one of having a compliant business. And just on the topic now of having a compliant practice, we've covered that. So the second part of your business that needs to be compliant are your client files. And that's dictated by the approach. The approach is what you see here. It's the compliance documents you should have in your client files. And the name approach is typically how you approach a prospect and a client and what compliance documents you need to have. So advisor disclosure, client engagement, fact-finding, needs assessment or risk tolerance if it's an investment product you're selling, recommendations, and the reason why letter. And of course, all the supporting notes and saved emails and conversations that you've had with the client. And just an FYI, in one of the coming bulletins, I'll be putting out a bulletin on advisor disclosure and some things to be aware of to improve your advisor disclosure, specifically how to disclose any outside business activities that you may have. So on this backdrop of having the two areas of your business that needs to be compliant, how are we doing as an industry? And what you're probably aware of, because I've spoken many times, is that you are susceptible to being audited by different entities in our industry. So you can obviously be audited by the regulator in your province, but more frequently what's happening today is something called advisor practice reviews, where one or more of the carriers you do business with decides to come in and audit your business. I call these the friendly audits because they really are like a dress rehearsal for a regulator audit. And it's friendly because, there's no sanctions, there's no penalties, but they're really looking to assist you to make sure you are ready for a regulator audit. And in the past 2 years, at IDC, we've had 200 advisors who have been audited by one of the carriers we deal with. So you can see on the screen here, Canada Life, absolutely very active in doing these audits. Other carriers, Empire Life, Manulife, Foresters. Equitable Life and Sun Life are kind of unique in that they've audited advisors, but within the context of AGAs. So if you're an AGA, interesting to note that your AGA can be audited and some of the advisors that do business under your AGA can be audited as well in one shot. So it's kind of a group audit of an AGA. So, these are, even though I call these the friendly audits, you have to be aware that, and what we've certainly done is captured the results of these audits to help educate you and to help us see if there's any gaps in learning, any things that advisors are struggling with that we need to help you with. But when a carrier selects you for audit, it represents about 2, 3, 4 hours of work for that carrier auditor to perform this audit and go over the results. And it takes you 2, 3 hours as well to compile what they're looking for. And they'll typically, in addition to looking at your manuals to make sure you have those, they'll also pick a few files that you've done with them. So a few new cases that you've done with them over the past year, maybe 2 years, and say, could we please see the compliance documents associated with this file? So these are friendly, but the work that's being done is significant. And especially you look at 200 audits just for our MGA alone, times 3 hours per audit, you can see that not only do we want to take this seriously and compile the results for you and get some learnings, takeaways from that, but also the carriers, they're storing this data. And now more often than ever, the regulators are now knocking on the insurance companies' doors and asking for reports. So the annual statement of market conduct is something that the insurance carriers have to complete once a year for CCIR. And part of that data is what they're doing to audit advisors. So even though these are friendly audits, you definitely don't want to fluff them off and say, this isn't important. It is important. And you certainly don't want to be on the radar of someone who's failing these audits, especially on a consistent basis. So what have the results been? So out of the 200 advisors we've had audited, you can see this is out of a scale of 4. So overall average overall score for these audits has been 2.9 out of 4. So just a hair under 75%. Okay, and then you can see in each category, sales suitability, 2.9. Sales suitability is, do you have your needs analysis? Do you have your risk tolerance questionnaire for an investment sale? How many advisors could document that they had provided their advisor disclosure to the client? Privacy commitment, privacy consent form. How many reason why letters? So you can see, as Don alluded to, that the lowest score is the reason why letters. Okay, and I just want to point out these scores are absolute in nature. So if you look at the average sales suitability score, 2.9, that means out of 4 advisors looked at, 2.9 of them had a needs analysis in the client file, and the other 1.1 did not. So this isn't judging how good your needs analysis was. It's just, did you have one or not in your client file? Okay. And the last 2 scores, good news. People are doing better on privacy and also on proceeds of crime money laundering, their AML manuals. So they do have those in order. So ask yourself, how would you fare on this chart here? And how would your practice score in an audit? So certainly we see that only 65% of advisors are doing a reason why letter. And it's not entirely surprising. I mean, the reason why letter is the latest best practice. I think it went into force as a requirement June 2018. But it is the most recent one, but it's a very important one. And we'll talk more about it. Just to show you how analytical we can get, I was also interested to see, okay, if we break down the audits by production category, and we say, okay, advisors who do more than 50,000 FYC, advisors who do between 20 and 50,000 FYC, and advisors who do less than 20,000. And not surprising to me, The advisor's doing over 50,000. Maybe they have staff, support staff, marketing assistant, and they're doing quite well in some of these audits. And as well, advisors doing under 20,000, maybe they're spending more time in front of their computer than they are in front of clients. So they're doing very well as well. But interesting to me that the middle group there, they're getting some good sales success, but maybe falling down in the area of compliance, maybe haven't quite graduated to hiring some people to help them accomplish their daily tasks. So kind of interesting there. And again, in all categories, no matter what the production, we see that reason why letter was the lowest score. So it's certainly something we want to focus on. So in the interest of time, and I know this presentation will be posted, so I'm not going to read the definition of a reason why letter verbatim, but suffice it to say, this is a layman's term letter that you send to the client. It can be an email as well, that just outlines the reasons why a particular insurance or investment product was recommended. And yes, investments apply to this as well. And detailing how it meets the client's financial needs, goals, and circumstances. So it's designed to ensure transparency. And that's a big part of it, because oftentimes what you say to the client is not what they hear. But when you put it on a document and they get a copy of it, particularly when they're asked to initial it or sign off on it, or acknowledge in a replied email, yes, I received this, I've read it. That's when you start to see that, wow, maybe the client wasn't quite clear because now they have questions. Okay. So very important. Why do we use, like, how can a reason why letter benefit you in your practice? Well, obviously, it helps you pass compliance audits. Nobody wants to fail an audit. But for a lot of advisors, that's where it ends. It's just this cryptic thing I have to do, get it done so I don't get in trouble. It doesn't help anyone. But no, I'll suggest to you that there's a second benefit, which is when I receive complaint files that come across my desk, I tell you, 9 out of 10 times, if the advisor had had a good reason why letter in that client file, that complaint either wouldn't have happened or it could have been easily defended by the advisor. And certainly, if a complaint morphs into a lawsuit or an E&O claim, your errors and omissions insurance company as well, when defending that complaint, will want to see a copy of your reason why letter. Because it really takes, and we'll show you some examples a little later, but, and I hope I can go 5 minutes over, Don and Lara, but it kind of, really takes the client from beginning to end in this particular product cycle. How did we start talking about this product? Where did we end up? What did we do? But it's also like a popcorn trail. So there's a lot of continuity where you say, okay, in your overall financial process, we want you to become your best financial self. This was one step we did with this particular product, but there's other steps that we did previously, and there's more steps we need to do. So it builds continuity in your sales process. And that's why the third benefit you see here on the screen is it can help you increase production when you're using these reason why letters, not as a stagnant document, but as a process to lead your client to the next steps towards their ideal financial selves. That's when the reason why letter really proves its worth to you. And just a quick tidbit too, I gave this presentation at our VP conference in Whistler, and one of the advisors said to me, for me, the reason why letter is really great when I'm meeting with a client 2 years after they bought something. And he goes, I'll look at their file and I can't remember what we did exactly. I see the policy that he has and I see a rating on it or something. And but he says, the reason why letter is a great refresher for me to go, oh yeah, that's what we did. And then he got rated. So we changed the coverage and we did that. That's how we ended up at that point. So it's great for your practice as well. So helping, and this is establishing in your clients' minds too, what you are as an advisor. And I know this isn't a live audience here in front of me, but I like to ask the question, what is an advisor? And often the responses I get back is, trusted, confident, professional, a good consultant, things like that. But what I want to suggest is an advisor is a leader. You're a leader for your clients. And I find that message has been a little bit lost in these modern times we live in. People research things on the internet. Everyone kind of thinks they know what they're doing. In actual fact, we see they know. LIMRA studies show consumers have a very, very low level of knowledge of what's actually available to them and what they truly need. So, taking this approach that, today, like we live in this friendly, consultative advisor type of world, but you are a leader and you're leading people out of this screen, which is financial confusion and apathy, which is what apathy comes from, is confusion, right? And how many times have you actually gotten in front of a new prospect and they show you their financial stuff and you think to yourself, how did it get this screwed up? Like, how did they buy all these products and one is not related to the other? I don't understand the logic. You know what? If the previous advisor had given them a reason why letter, and instead of showing you their policies and statements, they could go, well, here's a stack of 4 reason why letters on why I bought these products. It would be a lot easier for you, wouldn't it? To ascertain what they were thinking and what the advisor was thinking. So those reason why letters can actually help you make sense now of your client and help them see where they're going. And of course, there's going to be zigs and zags, but they're going to have a clearly defined direction and a popcorn trail along the way. So in the context of you being a leader, this is what, a reason why letter does, is it gives continuity to your process. It establishes you as the financial doctor. And I've put these 2 graphics. I'll share with you our wonderful, one of our digital marketing specialists, Jennifer Moss, who makes all our presentations look great. When she replaced these pictures with a professional looking advisor sitting in a living room with 2 clients and they're consulting with each other. And I kind of called that out and I said, no, I want to use this graphic. And this shows the teacher and the student. And I actually got this from an advisor we had come up from the US one time named Dean Harder. He was a #1 advisor at One America. And he said, I always use an agenda at my meetings because people deserve to know how this time is going to be spent. And I always have these 2 pictures. And I say to the client, you know what, Mr. Client, let's just review our roles here. There's the teacher and the student, and these roles are interchangeable. There's going to be times when I'm the student and you're going to be teaching me about your family, about your hopes and dreams, about your fears, about your career trajectory, and about your money and your finances. And I'm going to be busy taking notes like a good student. But then there are times when our roles will switch. And I'm the teacher teaching you about financial strategies, financial success, and explaining these things to you because that's what I do. That's what I know. And I'll tell you that subtle positioning, when you see the classic picture of a doctor meeting with a client, it's not collaborative, is it? It's a doctor in a white coat and the patient is sitting at the other side of the table listening to them. And I really think it's important sometimes just to reset that in your mind that you are financial doctors. And just like a doctor, they open up your file, they're seeing 10, 20 patients a day. They see the reasons they did the last test and they see what new tests have to be done. And they're dispensing medical advice to you. Same as you folks. And the reason why letter can really help you do that. You start to teach people about products and strategy. You show them what a definition of financial success is, whatever system you're using. And I highly recommend a system, and speak to Dawn and your regional BDEs and VPs, because we support plenty of systems, right? Financial planning systems that help you take a prospect and turn them into a client advocate who wants to give you referrals and wants to hear from you on a regular basis. That's what a good selling system does. And that's what once you have a system, your reason why letter can lead the client down that trail of taking them to their best financial selves. So lots of systems available to you to do that. Something that you use, that you enjoy using, that gets you excited and gets the client to join that parade, understanding There's students, you're the teacher. Sometimes that's reversed, but this is the type of professional relationship that a reason why letter can help you build. So wanted to just quickly go into some reason why letters. First of all, I always brag about our wonderful idcwinbig.ca and the wonderful digital sales specialists we have backing this system up. Always there at a moment's notice to have a chat with you and guide you to our tools. But if you go on this site, you'll see the search button panel. And if you just type in reason why letters, you're going to see some very good in-house reason why letters templates that we've created. A lot of these come from actual cases that our advisors did. Okay. So you can see different scenarios and get an idea of how a good reason why letter is written. I know the industry has some reason why letters that are kind of cryptic and template, like you bought this on this date. I don't recommend that. Yes, technically you could pass an audit with that, but it doesn't lead to good defense against client complaints if they occur. And it's certainly, I don't see how that leads to your next sale, right? So let me just present some of these now. Here's a reason why letter. This is a family situation. And you can see, talk about a system. This is one of the most basic systems. This particular advisor always likes to address the three pillars of financial security, which is life insurance, critical illness insurance, disability insurance. And disability insurance is one that's often not addressed because everyone assumes everyone's covered at their work. But it's amazing when you actually start asking clients questions they don't know. And then you find out one or both of this couple don't have disability insurance. So that was part of this advisor's system. And it's interesting the way they said, congratulations, here's your new life insurance and critical illness protection program. Here's what you bought. As discussed, you're in flux right now with your disability. You're going to confirm some things at work, and then we'll reconvene and see if there's some gap there that we need to address. So, what is it doing? It's saying, here's what you bought, here's why you bought it, and here's the next steps. And you'll be hearing from me. Okay, it builds that popcorn trail. Here's an example of a reason why letter for investments. And that's a bit trickier, right? Because why did someone buy this seg fund? Well, you have to kind of back up and say, I won't get into this now in the interest of time, but why did they buy an RSP and not a TFSA or a non-reg? So the reason why letter template that we have for seg funds, you'll see it on there. It addresses those things. And it even kind of addresses, why are they buying a seg fund? You can't just say, well, you're buying one because I'm only life licensed. That's the only thing you can buy from me. That's not a reason. There has to be some feature-based reasons why the client understands that a segregated fund is a good choice for them at this time. Okay. All right. So I think, you know what? We managed technical speed bumps aside. I think we got through this. I don't know if there's time for questions, but I think I'll end it there, Don.
Great, Eric. I think that was a great presentation. And there's a few questions that came up, and I'd like to pose those to you, Eric, before I
Sure.
introduce our next speaker. One of the questions is the reasons why letter necessary for an unsolicited investment trade?
A reason why letter required for so a client calls you, and trade is kind of a subject to definition. Someone who wants to switch the fund in their portfolio. No, that wouldn't be required because they bought the portfolio for a certain macro reason. And them making a fund switch is something that would be reflected in your meeting notes that, oh, the client is feeling a little nervous. They're getting a little older. Their job is a little precarious right now. They'd like to lower their risk profile. Ergo, they'd like to make this switch from, asset allocation to bonds or whatever. So I think if that's the nature of the question, Alex, that's the answer.
Okay. And then another question came up in the future, if a client buys another life insurance, will he need another reasons why letter from the customer?
Yeah, that's a great question. I just want to state on the previous question again, if the question meant just someone comes up to me and says, I want to put $10,000 into this equity fund, do I need a reason why letter? The client came to me. Well, yes, you still do. Okay. You can never just say, I was an order taker. He told me what he wanted to buy. I sold it to him. We still have that obligation to say, well, that's great, but just for, I'm a licensee and for compliance purposes, I do need to document how we're doing this and why we're doing that. Do you mind if I ask you some questions? So now on the second question with life insurance, absolutely. In fact, with a reason why letter, and we have some templates on there too that show a replacement scenario. There's usually a reason. And in particular with a replacement, you really want to have a good reason why letter, why we did that. I think in the templated version we have on our site, this person had gone through a divorce. He had ultimately achieved custody of his young daughter. But in the meantime, he had spent so much money on legal fees that he had had to cancel some of his insurance policies to get the cash value. And so those were replaced with a term policy so that he could continue to be insured to protect his daughter. And that's a very unique type of strategy, right? That you really want that documented because 5 years from now, you and him will not remember why this was done. And it's important to capture that.
Great, thank you. And maybe just one more quick question then, Eric, and I do get this a lot as well on the investment side. Things like even if it's a daily interest account, high interest savings, or even like a health spending account for those type of products are reasons why letters still required.
I mean, the big ones are the life insurance and investments. Um, I've had people ask this about group insurance, about health insurance. It's not a bad idea. And when you make it a habit, you're just going to do it all the time because you just like, even for your own purposes, creating a history of why you did things with clients. But strictly speaking, my experience is that I have not seen advisors audited for the health insurance plans they sell or the savings accounts, checking accounts they help clients open up.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Eric. We've all had the pleasure to work with Eric for many years and a great resource always. And any questions that have not been answered, we'll try our best to get the answer for you.